Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you don't know who I am, I'm Riley, and today we're going to be talking about the Bible and some scripture and living like Christ. Yeah. Also, you're on a tripod, so that's why it's wobbly, and this lighting might be doo-doo. But I have this ring light, but it's kind of like really bright, and I can like change it. But I don't know. I'm just keeping it off because it's weird. And this is my 4th time filming this because I keep messing up. And just like real quick before I start, I want to say I am human. So anything that comes out of my mouth is probably going to be wrong in some way, shape, or form. So I encourage you to get in your word and follow along with me so that you can see what it says and read more into it rather than just hearing what I have to say. Because probably gonna mess it up in translation somewhere. Anyway, let's get started. So just kidding, I opened my windows and I turned my light on because it felt weird in here. Also, it might get brighter because there's a light bulb that's flickering and there's only 2 light bulbs on in my ceiling fan right now, so it might turn on. Anyway, so let's read from 1 John chapter 1, verses 6 to 7. If we say that we have fellowship with him and walk in darkness, we lie and do not practice the truth. So if you say that you love God and that you're like saved or whatever, you have to live out what he's telling us. It's hard because we're sinners, but you know, you want to glorify him. So try your best to live like him. Then verse 7 says, But if we walk in light as he is the light, as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another, and the blood of Jesus Christ, his son, cleanses us from sin. So, yeah, I feel like that verse is pretty self-explanatory. So when you know God, you want to live like him, not just saying that you know him because Satan knows him. And what makes us different, what makes Christians different, is actually like seeing, so there was this TikTok I watched maybe a year or 2 ago. I think it was summer of 2020. But it was when you read the Bible, when you're doing Bible study or whatever, think like I always pray before I do Bible study, that I would just take it in and interpret it right. But I also say now, I pray that I would not apply it to my life, but apply my life to it. So not taking the word and fitting it somewhere in my life, but taking my life and making here's me. I say a lot. I just noticed that. So here's my life. Here's me. Here's Riley. And then we have things over here here's track. Here's field hockey. Here's my family. Here's God. But here's what it should be. Here's Riley. Here's God. And then there's everything else around. God should be at the center of your life, and he should be what your life revolves around. You know? Or not even this, but we're here's God, here's you, and then there's other stuff. He should just be the center of your life, and whatever you do, whatever actions you take, or whatever actions you live out or whatever, should be based around his word, and your life should be according to his word. You know what I'm trying to say? Alright, next we're going to be reading from James chapter 1, verses 22 to 25. Actually, we're going to read from 21 to 25 because that's the whole part. Okay. Therefore, lay aside all filthiness and overflow of wickedness and receive the meekness and implanted word which is able to save your soul. So that's verse 21. This kind of makes me think of what I was listening to this morning. So I was listening to Francis Chan, a sermon while I was eating breakfast, and he was talking about when you get saved or when you become Christian, there's God and he's living inside of you, a seed is planted inside of you. So it's not just I believe in God now. It's I'm accepting God now, and he's inside of me, and he's growing inside of me, and I'm going to continue to grow into this Christian, and you just love God. So this reminds me of that, when you decide that you are actually going to pursue God and let him pursue you, better way to put it, you put aside sin. So you're like, okay, I am actively deciding that I'm not going to live in this anymore. Of course, you're going to sin because you're human, but you are, like, telling yourself, no more. Like, I'm not going to actively live in this. And, wait, there's a verse. Wait, I have to find this verse. So my sister just got upstairs, so she's probably going to make noise. But, 1 John, this is chapter 2, verse 6 says, he who says he abides in him ought himself also to walk just as he walked. Oh wait, it didn't turn on. There it is. My light bulb turned on. Do you see it? Anyway, so same thing when you say that you are living for God, you're not living in the same way, you just believe that God's there. It's that your life is taking a turn. You're turning a new leaf, basically, because he's in you. And next I'm going to read from, did I read that already? Oh, I have to finish reading the thing from James. Okay, so I read James chapter 1, verse 21, and then that's what we were talking about. And now I'm going to read 22 through 25, and I'll probably stop. But doers of the word, not only hearers, but be doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. So live out the word, not just read it. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man observing his natural face in a mirror. For he observes himself, goes away, and immediately forgets what kind of man he was. But he who looks into the perfect law of liberty and continues in it, and is not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work, this one will be blessed in what he does. Alright, so now we're going to talk about reasons why we live it out. I don't know. So, like I said, this is my 4th time trying to film this video, so I can't remember what I showed you or not. But here are the notes I wrote down, and I just wrote these. So, that's why I'm going to be looking down here at my paper. So, first thing is, it all works out for good when we follow his way. So, I mean, his will / his way. It's the same thing. Anyway, so when, like, he's literally, like, the God of, like, the world. And he knows the future. He's all-knowing. So when you follow... I think it's funny that you're over there. Anyway, so when you follow, like, what he says, you know that's going to work out well. Can you stop staring at me? So you know that it's going to work out well, and because he knows, like, the future. And it's one of his promises that everything will work out for good if you follow him. And then the second thing I have is... I wrote this. He's literally the God of everything. Why wouldn't you want to do what he asks? Future seer, in parentheses. So it's basically the same thing as what I said. Like, he's all-knowing. Like, everything that you do for him, it's going to work out for the good. Even if it seems hard in the moment, eventually it will work out for good. And a really good example of that is the book Evidence Not Seen. I'm reading that right now. And now I'm thinking about it, it's a really good, like, book. Because literally, they go through so much hardship. Like, Paul's life, it's not about Paul's life, but, like, Paul goes through a lot of hard stuff. But it's Darlene, the girl's name, and her husband Russell, and all these other missionaries that they're with. I think there's, like, 7 other women, or 6 other women, and then there's a couple other guys. But you'll see what happens throughout the story. Anyway, so they go through all these trials, like, during World War II, and they're in these, like, islands, and they remain faithful, though, and God, like, helps them through all the things that they're going through. Anyway, for the third part, what I wrote down, he died for us to not go into eternal death, so we give it back to him. So it's kind of like a thank you living for him, because what he did. If you don't know what he did, I recommend reading the Gospels. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They're basically testimonies of people witnessing Jesus' life, 4 of his closest friends, his apostles, and they wrote about his life and stories that he told and stuff like that. So, anyway, at the end of, like, all of them, you can see that, like, he got hung on the cross for us, so we wouldn't go into eternal death. I feel like that's, like, the biggest story about Jesus, Easter, you know. So, when we live for him, we're glorifying him. And being like, thank you for doing this. So I'm going to live for you because you did this for me. And then number 4, we want to be an example. We know that God is so good, and we want to show other people the way that he lived through the way that we act. So I don't know about you guys, but for me, I like God is just like amazing. Yeah. So I want other people to experience what I've experienced. So living the way that he wants me to, living how Jesus lived is how he wants us to live. So doing that, making others see how he lived, will probably encourage others to go to him. And then they'll see how good he is. And come to him, maybe. Not everyone, but at least one person will, so maybe at least one person. For me, I know at least one person has at like one point, at least. And that's what I have. So this video is 10 minutes, 11 minutes, actually 10 minutes and 47 seconds of maybe boringness. But if it helps someone, then it helps someone. And if it didn't, sorry, I wasted 11 minutes. But I do encourage you to go read the Bible for yourself and see what God's about. And if not, it's fine. Well, it's not fine, but it's fine. Have a very jolly day.